Hi folks, how's it going? Welcome to the next edition of Serverless Craic. How are we getting on?
Not too bad.
Happy days.
Not too bad. Playing it.
Every
Uh,
day.
See where we're at now. We're still flying through the book, getting through it rightly. We are on chapter 17, is that right?
Yep, phase four and the long-term value.
Long-term value. Ooh, problem prevention culture through the well-architected framework. That's a good one.
One of our favorite topics, right?
This could be a long one. I need to check ourselves.
No.
Um, this is a good one now. I suppose where we start now. It's probably worth saying problem prevention culture. That's probably a good one to start with.
Yeah, it's
Um,
often misunderstood and probably undervalued by lots of organizations is the whole people working away, preventing problems that nobody ever understands or even notices. Um,
Mm.
and sometimes they don't get the highlight or the recognition they deserve for, hey, patching that system or fixing that bug or scaling up that service or addressing some technical debt thing behind the scenes that that nobody noticed
Mm.
because they had a problem prevention mindset, right? Whereas on the flip side, oh, we've got this issue, we've got this problem that's just emerged, we're on a severity one issue. Oh well, what could we have done to prevent that problem? Oh, we'll
mm,
better fix that now, right? So sometimes the people who do the problem prevention don't get recognized or rewarded, but the people who firefight after the fact can do
yeah,
so.
Yeah.
it's the heroes, the people who jump in and then put out all the fires are the heroes, and then the quiet team who just did all the work, did all the resiliency work up front.
Yep.
Mm.
They often get, oh yeah, they're fine, but they didn't work all weekend, but these guys did, and they're amazing. So
Yep.
it's funny. So that I think it was it's a nice phrase. Problem prevention culture.
Mm.
Just thinking ahead.
I was kind of this one I think experienced engineers, good engineers, this one resonates quite strongly. Like I mean, I
Mm,
think when you're a young engineer or when you're starting out, you're just keen to get stuff going and ship stuff out into prod. And I think over time you realize, everything breaks all the time.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, you always got to kind of expect failure and expect certain degree of troubleshooting and things like that, right? So again, it's setting yourself up. Fundamentally, it's about making good engineering decisions and putting a bit of additional effort in up front,
Yep.
kind of set yourself up. I mean, if you look at the core premise of what we talk about throughout the book, it's you're shifting more and more left onto teams, and teams are going to start to, a serverless team is probably building out capability after capability after capability. If you don't focus on long-term value and problem prevention, you're going to put the team out of service in terms of amount of tickets, triage, like the run costs. So the
mm,
idea is you want to keep your team, the team has to keep mobile and keep moving, right? And keep focusing on new value add stuff. But you can only do that with high degrees of engineering rigor,
Yeah.
right?
mm,
It's also about, do you invest in the environment that you're operating in to try to give you as much insights and telemetry and observability into the
Mm.
system so that you can spot problems before they become problems, right? So
mm,
especially if that problem prevention mindset, you're constantly, oh, we've had a little spike in traffic. We maybe think about, are we going to scale? Maybe we're going to load test
Yeah.
this week instead of waiting another couple of months. There's having the feedback loops and that sensing engine established really gives you all those indicators that allow you to think about preventing problems instead of it being
mm,
catastrophic issues further in the line.
Yeah.
mm,
I think it's hard as well because I think there's always the eternal battle in organizations when it comes to delivery versus, maybe putting a wee bit of additional effort in or engineering excellence, right? And that notion of MVP, let's get it out the prod and we'll react. So there's always some poor architect or principal engineer that has to strike that balance.
Yeah.
What am I happy going to production with? Have I done the basic level of kind of rigor? Even then, Mark, I would always say like, you know, never never ship anything out the prod without the ability to see it and observe it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's table stakes.
Mm.
You know, oh, we should get it out. We can do the dashboards after. Never. You
But
know.
that's, if you think about it, I remember having this conversation a long time ago. It was always a very woolly subject, like a good and like good architecture or a good engineering. And if you remember, it was a long time ago, but over 10 years ago, we were having this discussion. And often you would say, yeah, well, we need to put a good architecture in place to ensure we have, a stable system.
Mm,
And they'd be like, yeah, well, for me, a good architecture is, and then madness starts.
Yeah.
So the thing that really I think was challenging is everyone had their own definition of what a good architecture was or what a good system was.
Yeah.
mm,
So I think one of the things that I remember specifically thinking about this, I thought I need a definition
Yeah.
of quality of good architecture that we can relate to problem prevention, that no one can debate. I don't want to have a debate about what a good architecture is and this observability versus resiliency. It's like,
Yeah.
don't be stupid. It's a waste of time. You know what I mean? So a couple of the cloud providers at the time had their versions of well architected. Remember Google had one, Azure had one, and AWS had one. And I remember specifically sitting going through all three. And it's basically the same thing,
Yeah.
just framed differently. And then I remember liking the AWS one best because it was nice and simple.
Yeah.
And it was laid out with initially it was five pillars and then they added a sixth. And the way they laid it was operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and then they added sustainability. And I always liked that because you could rhyme them off
Yeah.
in a meeting. Again, that was my visual cue. If you're having that debate and someone says, well, architecture for me, you go, well, listen, operational excellence, security, you could just rhyme
Yeah.
them off.
mm.
And it was like, there was no debate. And if someone says, well, I don't agree with that, you can say, well, go and read the 85-page white paper and tell me what you think's wrong with it.
Okay.
And it was just, again, a great example of offloading something to the provider. Just go look at that,
Yeah.
you know?
It's also, removing complexity by making a definitive decision on this. We're going to align ourselves around well architected, right? So that's a whole lot of debate and sort of back and forward and sort of nuanced custom building of our own particular secret sauce about what we think good architecture is. That's off the table now. It's like we're going to align to the standard, and that,
Yeah,
and it's been proven and hardened and over tens of thousands of iterations with real
yeah,
world use cases. So it's not like your own particular local maximum of what you think is good. It's been hardened and approved and is constantly being
yeah.
refined.
And the
Yeah.
thing I like about it, which is just the thing, I mean, it's very detailed, but I think it came out 2013, something like that, 2015. Um, but I'm probably wrong, but it's about then anyway. But it'll have a pillar with a quality. And then it'll have some kind of traits of that, and then it'll have some best practices,
Yeah.
good practices. So it's almost like there's a heuristic, like here's some things you need to watch out for, and here's things that you can look at to address it. And then what's most important is that is then baked into the tool set.
Yeah.
So when you're in like any of the services, you can see references to well-architected stuff. So it's linked in, the framework's linked into the services, which I thought was nice.
Mm,
Yeah, and I think over the last number of years going forward, like tools like Trusted Advisor, Security Hub, Resiliency Hub, they all have capabilities that are aligned to well architected that allow you to be more secure, to be more resilient, to be more operationally excellent. So it's over the years it's got easier and easier and easier to align yourself and adhere to these
yeah.
standards. You're getting much better feedback, you're getting much better signals, you're getting much better advice and guidance from the system you're operating in
Yeah.
because these tools incorporate this stuff.
And this is also really important. Do you remember? I just remembering this now. Do you remember? I used to have a slide that we aligned on the phrase "Are you well architected?"
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
Because we would say the executives and stakeholders, "Is this well architected?" And the whole idea is that it's not an opinion. I remember I used to have this slide. It's like when your doctor would say to you, "Are you eating your five fruit and veg a day?" And you go, yes. You say, oh, what are you eating? You go, well, I have a bottle of Fanta, and then I have some fruit pastels, and then I eat a green thing, but it's actually sweet. So it's like, no, you're just kidding yourself. There's a very clear definition of five fruit and veg. So if a doctor says, are you eating your five a day? It's really simple, but like you can potentially lie to him or her, but it's very
Mm.
clear what that 3 or 4 words means. And it was the same with well architected. Is this well architected? And there's pillars, there's checklists, there's a whole thing behind it that you can tell. And so it
Yeah.
was a really nice, I thought it was really nice to explain that and really simple. But then the problem, if you remember, the problem we had is that when we get excited about the framework and then you looked at the architected tool, it was like this, big tool with loads of checklists and loads of questions, and it felt like an audit,
Yeah.
which I know was not the intention. But usually when the likes of AWS would do it, they do it over 5 days and take ages. So like I think that was a really good process and good experience. But I remember thinking, there's no way I can scale this to hundreds of teams. It's just
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Yeah, we had to do a lot of work demystifying it and making it much more approachable for teams that had an hour. Right? How do you ask the questions to get to the essence of what you're trying to achieve without having to lock teams in a room for a day and a half
Yeah.
or 2 days,
But
right?
do you remember as well, people were like, well, let's just customize it because we know better. You're like, no, 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 not doing that.
Yeah.
Custom lens.
We all think we're smart, but we're not that smart. We're not smarter than all the architects in Amazon.
Yeah, it was a great day whenever the serverless lens came out and we could stop having these conversations.
Just go that one. Just pick that one. 9 questions. Um, so
Yeah.
that was, I mean, so then we thought about how do we operationalize well architected and,
Mm.
and, and scale it out to teams. And then I think, Mike, you have to take this one.
Yeah, go for it, Mike.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what you said. I think at the time I was playing around, I was messing around. There's maybe 15 different teams I was kind of working with at the time, and I was trying to run well architected reviews with across each of those teams and each of those workloads. And kind of what I found was there was a lot of things that were coming up across a lot of different teams that were kind of consistent. But then I also found that it was very kind of point in time, you know, like you'd run one, say, one quarter, and then you'd run one the following quarter, and then it was really hard for a team to make progress. So say there was any findings or any gaps or anything you wanted to tighten up. I remember it was always like, okay, it feels like an eternity between each of those reviews. So then I thought to myself, well, actually, why don't we try and operationalize this a wee bit and start, well, what are the key trends? Okay, so we should create like a dashboard for each team, and we should meet fairly regularly, and we should try and trend some of these metrics. So again, encourage teams to look at their performance across the different kind of pillars, and then but bring the teams together. So again, that borne out the whole SCORP process, where a team would take 10 minutes, narrate like their key metrics, their key trends, you know, talk about what worked, talk about what didn't. We don't need to go deep in anything, but what it did is it helped create that wee network. So and again, it got teams into that rigor of spotting regressions and keeping on top of certain things and getting them into the habits of reviewing dashboards and then even with the textures and stuff like that. And so it kind of took on a wee bit of a life of its own. And still a lot of companies, like, I mean, I know a few companies have embraced it. Certainly we still run with it. We still encourage it. It's such an important part of just, because what we say about like that engineering excellence and getting into that problem prevention mindset, you're learning all the time. You know what I mean? Everyone's production environment is slightly different. So again, you gotta observe, you gotta learn, you gotta share, and I think that's just something you accumulate over time. So again, it works. It does seem to work.
No, it's a
Yeah.
brilliant approach. I mean, a couple of really important things and again, you started this with your squads and we scaled it, is that go to the teams and see where they're at.
Yeah.
Don't be reading them the riot act.
Yep.
Go to the team, say, right, where he's at. It's a safe space to
Yeah.
talk about like your non-functional stuff, performance, security, resiliency, cost. So, and then you look at trends. Like you might look at your performance over that past couple of months and something spikes up and you go, oh, what happened there? And they go, yes. And then you get into the discussion. Have a couple of different teams there so they can share. Again, we called it, instead of calling it like the well-architected review process, we just, was your idea, make you shorten it to SCORP, security, cost, operational, resiliency, performance. Make it really simple. And then that's the SCORP session.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then the final last thing is focus on dashboards and try and keep them low fidelity. Like they're not perfect. They're engineering dashboards, so it's just a bunch of numbers. You can just sit and look through them. You can
Mm.
make them as fancier as as basic as you want, but it's like don't spend all your time on the dashboard, spend all your time on the issues.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic learning vehicle for junior people on the teams to understand these are some of these higher order things I should be thinking about for my daily work and my workloads.
Yeah.
It also is really useful to have a number of teams doing it together so that the cross collaboration and cross pollination of ideas and solutions happened. A little bit of peer pressure as well, which is always good. Hey, they've got better metrics than we do. We need to
Positive,
invest a sprint in getting some of that telemetry right.
positive peer pressure, 100%. No, 100%. Like, and that's kind of why we used to for was it helps me when you put it in, to your point, you get the team focusing on a dashboard that they've created and it's their dashboard.
Yeah.
You can then put, again, we can apply pressure because obviously as architects and senior technical people, you typically don't have, you won't have people reporting into you. So really what you have is your influence. But if you've got those dashboards and you can spot those trends, then you can start saying to leadership, actually, you guys need to tighten up on this, this, and this. And it's almost helps the engineering lead on the team get traction and get, those sorts of things into backlogs and gets, again, it's a real positive peer pressure. But again, you have to meet the team where they're at. And that's one of the hardest things because most orgs will have teams on different, there'll be different sort of ends of the spectrum. Sometimes there's teams who are just very new and there's teams who are well kind of established. And again, it's really important that you can have that safe space, that, that open culture, that psychological safety where you can ask questions, you can raise certain things. It's okay to have something that's not in good shape because that's opportunity to, tighten something up. So again, it's really important you kind of foster that. The other thing I've seen sometimes is, leadership teams can get really excited and try and flood SCORP dashboards with like metrics that aren't relevant to the teams. Like that's one thing I absolutely would not allow. Actually, no, if the team isn't focused on it and they don't know how to interpret it, or it's not a useful metric, it's not something they're spotting the trends on. That needs something else. But this is the team's sort of, again, you do that with workload and you do that over time. Like some of my SCORP sessions now, the teams have maybe 6 or 7 workloads, and you just, they can boom, 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 boom through them, and there's maybe nothing too interesting happening in 6 of them, but in one of them, they're kind of going, actually, we're spotting this. This is what we're focused on now, right?
It was always fantastic to see or let them explain the story of their dashboard.
Tell it. Yeah.
Tell us the context here. And it was always good to start to rotate that around to different people in the team. It's like your turn to do it. So if you can explain the nuance and explain the context and explain the anomalies or explain the trends, it makes you think about your workloads. Is your workload ready? Where can you improve? Just being able to tell that narrative is a real skill that it was great to get more junior people to actually understand this stuff, explain what you're saying, explain why this is spiked or this is reduced or whatever. It's a great way for junior people to grow, is being able to articulate this stuff in a really compelling way.
It's even taking pride in engineering, like
100%. It's also for us as senior leaders, it was a fantastic sensing engine for us to go, hey, I've seen 3 or 4 teams struggling with scaling up rapidly or whatever it may be. That's something I think we at the enterprise should maybe invest a couple of cycles or maybe get a team to look at what's our capability here. Can we invest some time? Can we build something that will help every team? So it was a really good way for us for the more strategic initiatives to get feedback on what are the real issues on the ground with the teams. What are they saying that we can improve?
Even stuff like tools, team might say, yeah, there's our security vulnerabilities. We've got criticals and highs and mediums and stuff. And you go like, well, how are you finding the tool? I go, no, it's really good, or oh, it's awful.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So just hearing how teams are interacting with different tools that they're using, it's super useful.
And like back to the start, like this is what a true problem prevention culture looks like. Right? They're constantly fixing issues. They're constantly refining what they're doing. They're constantly improving across all these different pillars. And they have less issues. They have less big issues. They have less P1, P2 severities. They have less outages because they're constantly chipping away at this.
They're open and transparent. You know what I mean?
It's like, yeah, totally. And it's like the broken window thing as well. Like, see, if you see an wrecked house with loads of broken windows, you don't mind breaking another one. But if there's a house with no broken windows, you feel bad about it, like, or what do you call it, the Boy Scout rule. So leave stuff in a better shape. So it's all those good sort of good habits.
One last point I'd make on it is it's really hard to get going. You know, I always kind of say like the first 5 or 6 SCORP sessions are actually reasonably difficult because people have everything on their dashboard or they've nothing or they don't know what to be. So again, you got to persevere. But I think with the perseverance, say after about a year or two, the teams that do take it on and take it on really well, you should see how expert they become. It's like it's really scary, and it's getting to the point where like the business metrics and because then the op excellence pillar is very very good at like your KPIs and what your focus is, and then just being able to kind of line up the tech narrative and the against the business narrative, they just make far better decisions. And in the dashboards, you see the level of maturity just rises and rises to the point now where they're way better than any dashboard I've ever done. Half of them, they're just, but it's again, it's momentum and it's small, incremental, continuous improvement, and it's when it's done well, it's you can't get near it. You can't. I think there's a lot of fallacy in the industry. We've just got these experts and they come in and they knock out this stuff. It's really amazing, whatever. No, actually, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. It's months and years of continuous iteration and continuous. It's marginal gains at scale.
Yeah, 100%.
I had a pound for every time an external expert come into the company to assess engineering levels, and then you show them SCORP, and the report is, yeah, that SCORP thing's really good. They should keep doing that. Like, yeah, we know. Thank you.
Yeah.
How much did that cost?
I know.
Yeah, it's good stuff. But I no, in fairness, you do welcome those validations, but this is a brilliant process, SCORP.
Yeah, we have templates in the process written up on the blog, and it's the template on the GitHub repo as well, I think.
That's right, yeah. On the serverlessedge.com, if you look at the top, there's like a SCORP process link, and it's all open sourced, all the templates with some advice. It's definitely worth looking at. That's a cracking technique.
On this chapter, we also had a looking forward to the 2040 section, which is kind of interesting.
Seems so far away back then.
I still think it's fairly good.
Yeah, I think it stands up.
Yeah. Well, we said, let's go through. So we said problem prevention would still be important, which I think is fair enough.
Absolutely. You're just preventing a lot of AI problems now.
Yeah. I thought this was interesting. The technology stack, the term serverless has long disappeared, and the idea of public cloud provider is niche in terms of old. The cloud is now ubiquitous, and operating model is the concern of a few specialists, much like electricity today, so it's commodity.
Yeah.
There's still legacy software, but basically teams don't talk about cloud providers and skills, they interact with systems and capabilities. Hopefully that'll happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Engine architecture, testing is still a challenge and a much sought after competency. Sustainability. We didn't mention AI, strangely enough. Maybe we did that on purpose.
There is a line there about they will have extreme creativity when creating software solutions. You think some of the nonsense people are creating these days, I suppose that's not too far off.
Yeah, they're too creative. So it's interesting. I mean, yeah, it's an interesting chapter. I do think like you could write a whole book about problem prevention and SCORP, the whole thing. Like it's such a deep topic.
But even just on that point, something you were saying earlier, even on the well-architected, and I think is that organizations that are probably a wee bit more down the maturity curve in terms of its adoption, in terms of what they even set up, is that they weave it into their cloud, the fabric of their cloud. You know what I mean? So again, you can have well-architected patterns and well-architected consumption of managed services and things like that. And again, so well-architected that should then permeate your cloud setup, your cloud configuration to the point where it's really you've got problem prevention at an organizational level. You know what I mean? So you can deploy like an open gateway without security out into prod, and that's even more important. Like even the rules around data egress from your internal network, in the world of MCP, holy moly, like, those sorts of things have got to make it into your organization. So again, all the stuff we're saying here about shift and left and problem prevention, it's that with,
the two come hand in hand. You can't shift left without problem prevention.
No, even an agent. So Jesus, you need the problem prevention and culture for agentic coders. You know what I mean? So who spots that? So
It's all compounding. It all builds on top of each other. So if you have, like a lot of the problem prevention capabilities, you can start codifying and you can start automating them. So if you try to spit up an
yeah,
API gateway that exposes it to the public and it shouldn't done, you can auto remediate, and all of those things are codified. So I think with the AI era, if you don't have that foundation in place, it's very hard for you to open the floodgates to a lot of these AI capabilities because you don't know what risks you're starting to take on.
yep, your bulkheads.
Very good. So that's the crack. That's a good wee chapter now. We'll keep going with that now. I think what's the next one? The sustainability stuff. Be a good chat.
Yep.
Go leave it at that then. That was a good one. So give us a wee the SCORP template again is on the serverless.com. Have a look at it. Give us a wee follow on LinkedIn or YouTube. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.